We're going to be starting this vlog with a little bit of a book haul. Come on then.
I feel like we're going to be here for a long time.
I don't know what to tell you guys. Hibernation just looks really good on me. Mama did not raise somebody who can't handle her alcohol. Did we get a projector just so that we can watch Vanderpump Rules in bed? The epilogue of this book ended me. Hello my guys, it is Christmas week and I hope when you're watching this you have had a wonderful, relaxing, wholesome, festive period. But for me, I'm feeling very unprepared, so I have a very busy couple of days ahead of me. But in terms of this vlog, we are going to be wrapping up the first round of reread and resume, which is really exciting because I wanted to finish or continue on in a bunch of series before we got to the end of year to make that end of year content a little bit more satisfying, and I have not achieved that. So what I really want to do is get one series completed and under my belt, if nothing else. So we're going to be starting this vlog with a little bit of a book haul because at the beginning of December I ordered a couple of things from the Broken Binding. The Broken Binding, as you guys probably know, do have a subscription, but they are also just like a regular fantasy and sci-fi bookshop, and they have reps with discount codes. So I was looking for some good Black Friday deals on books. These were full price, but with the rep discount I did get a little bit of money off, which made them a little bit more affordable because a fantasy paperback brand new these days, she is not cheap. So these have just arrived. Included in this parcel we should have my current read, which I've also borrowed from Libby so that I can read it on my Kindle because it has a little bit of more gentle font size on there. And then I also have in here one of the books from my January TBR. So I ordered two paperbacks. I think that this one is my current read, so we'll start off with this one, and this should be The Light of All That Falls by James Islington, which is the final book in the Licanius trilogy. Now all of these books are pretty thick, but this one is thick even by those standards. Let's have a look how much of this is content and how much is like the glossary. So 814 pages in total. I did start this last night, but I'm in the recap. The great thing about James Islington is that he has a really detailed recap of the previous books in the series before the like sequels start. So these aren't even real pages. I'm on page 20 of the like pre-book content, and I just need to read the recap of An Echo of Things to Come before I get stuck into this one. But this is an adult epic fantasy series. It's very reminiscent of Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan, and we are following a young man called Davian who is a gifted in this world. Now in the history of this world, I think around a generation ago, there were these godlike beings called Augurs who had control of this world because they had incredibly accurate prophecies that allowed them to foretell the future. Now something happened and the Augurs became unreliable. Their prophecies were no longer coming true. So eventually the regular people of the world rose up and overthrew them, and the only people that resisted were some of the gifted. Now the difference between the gifted and the Augurs is that the gifted have a physical manifestation of the magic and the Augurs have a more mental manifestation, so they can predict the future, read minds, in some cases they can compel people. And the gifted eventually signed a treaty that allowed non-gifted people to step in as administrators and tightly control the magic. So the gifted are now heavily policed and they have to succeed in this series of trials after completing a period of schooling to be allowed to use their powers in service for the world. And our main character Davian is a gifted, however he cannot use his abilities at all. And one day shortly before these trials, somebody comes to the school where he lives and tells him that Davian is actually an Augur, and he hands him this artifact and tells him that he has to journey to the north of this world to help to reinforce a barrier that has been keeping all of the monsters and the evil of the world at bay. So Davian sets off to do that with his best friend, and along the way he meets a few extra companions that join him on his quest. So this is probably the only thing I'm going to be tackling over this week. As it is Christmas week, I am excited once we get past like the actual Christmas day to enjoy a bunch of hobbies. I'm going to be doing some pre-Christmas baking and stuff that will be included in this vlog, and generally I just want to have a really good relaxing time and make my way through this home. So the other book that I have that is on my January TBR is the catch-up book club for January, or in terms of reading months, it's actually for November and December, but the live show is going to be on the 11th of January on my channel. And that live show is going to be for the final book in the Banished Land series, which is A Time of Courage by John Gwynne. So as you guys probably know, if you are familiar at all with this channel, this one is a series that is set in a world where there was a a war between the giants and the men, and the giants have died out like a long time ago. At this point, the regular citizens of the world think that all of this magic and the giants, etc., are just legend and myth. However, there is a prophecy that originates from the time of giants that says that there is going to be an avatar for good and evil called the Bright Star and the Black Sun, and the whole world is going to split in two and rally behind one of them, and those two are going to battle it out. So that is what the first Banished Lands series, The Faithful and the Fallen, follows. And then the second one, which is a trilogy, is set 150 years after the conclusion of The Faithful and the Fallen, and we are following a handful of people who are fighting back against this kind of oppressive control that has risen up after the events of the first series, that is essentially colonizing all of the countries, all of the lands, all of the cultures that are part of this world, and forcing people to join their army. So it deals a lot with the themes of good and evil, and what is truly good, what is truly evil, and we see all of those kind of factions represented in here as the characters struggle to, hopefully, what I'm hoping we're going to see in here is this world return to peace. Now, I have spoken to John Gwynne recently. I went to an event that he attended, and he did say that he is definitely open to revisiting this world in the future, and I definitely think that we are going to have a little bit of an open end on this series just because there is so much in here that needs to be wrapped up. But it is a little bit of a longer book than the first two installments. This one's around 700 pages, I think. 648. So if you guys want to see my thoughts on this one, it will be coming very soon because of course I have to read this before the deadline of the live show. I tried to rearrange my shelves in a way that left space for this book, and I don't think I quite succeeded, but it's okay because I can actually put this on my TBR cart because I'm reading it very soon. And this one, like I said, I'm going to be diving into immediately, but once again, I didn't leave enough space to get this enormous fantasy book on my shelves when I'm done. So that is everything I have in terms of book content. But before we get into just what I'm generally going to be getting up to over the next week, I have somebody to introduce you guys to. Carmy, are you coming? Come on then. Hello, say hello to the peoples. Good girl. You gonna face this way? Are you gonna say hello? There we go. So this is Carmy, guys. I've been keeping her a little bit of a secret. Oops, gentle, for a couple of weeks now. As you guys will probably remember, we did lose our Labrador Brie a couple of months ago, and we weren't intending to adopt anyone new anytime soon, but we had the opportunity to rehome Carmy, which is what we've called her. If you guys are fans of the bear, then you'll know where we got that name from. And she is joining our family, so I just wanted to fill you guys in. I'm sure you'll see her running around in this vlog. She is a Dudley Labrador, which is why her nose and her eyes are pink. It means she's got like the recessive genes of a chocolate, even though she is a yellow. And she's actually quite a timid and a shy girl. We're hoping that she will come out of her shell more and more, but it seems like the shyness is just part of her personality. But she is actually really well behaved. When we got Brie, I didn't actually know very much about Labradors at all. And she was a tornado. She was an absolute whirlwind. And so doing more research into Labradors, I did discover over the course of having Brie that there are different types. You can have working Labradors and you can have show Labradors, and then you can have just like a higgledy-piggledy Labrador, which I think people generally call pet Labradors. I did discover eventually that Brie was a working Labrador, which is why she requires so much stimulation. And obviously, like, we didn't go out and pick Carmy from a breeder. We didn't take Brie from a breeder either, so we didn't know in either case what we were getting. But it does look like, because she's a little bit more stocky and she's going to be quite big, that she is more of a show or a pet Labrador, which means that she is actually, and so far has proven to be, a little bit more low maintenance. She's really calm, very well behaved for her age. She's 9 months old and she's a very good girl, aren't you, baby? Yeah. Yes, you are. So I have the rest, as you can see, I'm currently proofing Shelvador Scrap It in the background, so I have that to finish up today. Ooh, I think that's DPD. So that was, I think, one of Curtis's final collections before Christmas. I just have this video to wrap up and give my patrons early access to it. And then it's time to focus on live stuff. I need to get started on the Christmas clean, like sprucing everything up so that I don't have anything to worry about between Christmas and New Year. I also really need to start the Christmas shopping list because we are going to be doing that at around like 5 or 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. And like I said earlier, I'm really just unprepared for everything. morning, guys. I low-key feel like I've forgotten how to vlog, but yesterday was a really busy day. We got up at 6:30 to do the Christmas food shop. We went to Asda. Only 3 turkey crowns in Asda when I got there at like before 8 a.m. in the morning. Literal insanity, but I did manage to snag one. And then there were a couple of things we couldn't get, like I couldn't get any goose fat or beef dripping for my potatoes. So I went to M&S Food and got that, and I was like, you know what, while I'm up, I need to go see my dad, we need to do presents. So I went to go and do that, and then by the time I came home, I made dinner. We watched some TV. We're watching season 2 of Squid Game at the minute. Oh, that was a lot of cream. But hey, it's Christmas. This is Bailey's pouring cream. I only allow myself to have this. I can open it on Christmas Eve and then I can put it into my coffee until the pot is done, because it is delicious. But damn, is it not really great for you to just pour straight up cream into your coffee? So yeah, we started Squid Game season 2 because we didn't watch that when it was released because everyone said it ended on a massive cliffhanger. So we waited for season 3 and then we just kind of haven't caught up with it yet. But I'm enjoying that very much. And then I worked out and I went to bed. So in terms of reading, we truly do not have very much to report. I'm just trying to stir my collagen in so it's smooth. It took me 2 days to read the recap of books 1 and 2 of the Licanius trilogy. And then yesterday I managed the prologue and chapter 1. So I'm pretty much ready to go today because we have to go and do Curtis's family today, which is going to be 3 different trips. We're taking Carmy with us so that she can see her grandparents. And then I have a chocolate trifle to make, or Bailey's trifle, should I say, for Christmas tomorrow. I need to wrap up my turkey all snug, ready to go in the oven first thing in the morning. And I have to like peel my potatoes and prep my veg and that kind of thing. And then I'm going to have a bath or a shower and wash my hair and settle in for the Christmas festivities, which hopefully at some point will enjoy a little bit of reading. Let me taste this. I haven't had a Bailey's coffee this year. It's just so good. It's just so good.
This is the face of a girl who does not yet know that she has like 7 presents to unwrap. Merry Christmas, baby. Merry first Christmas. Oh, thank you. A big kiss for everyone at home. What do you want then? Do you want this one from your granddad? I think this one's for you. Just a minute. Just a minute. Let me check. To Carmy. There you go. Not even ripping, she's just jumping right in there normally. It's gone. Oh, what's that? A bear? A stocking selection that she does not care about. Gisu! Gisu! I got another go at an egg.
An eggy box.
I got another go at an egg. Why do men wrap like this? She's so pretty. Is egg on toast? Egg on toast! Ah, she's so cute.
Good afternoon. It is now Friday and I have read like none of this book. I'm about to find out exactly where I'm up to, but I've only just passed the 10% mark. So I'm expecting that I'm not really all that far in. I think I'm in like my first Asher chapter. Yeah, I'm like on chapter 5, which is page 79. So that's not even really 10% if we're being honest, because this is an 816 nope, 14 page book. So I still have a ways to go. My original plan was to read this within a week. I mean, the lead up to Christmas is busy though. And the good news is that we're now at Boxing Day, which is my favorite day of the year. And the reason why is because we're done with the obligations now. Between now and New Year, I have absolutely nothing on. So hopefully that will mean a lot of productive reading time. I will say though, I especially love this week because it's hobby week. Like I said, not very much going on, lots of time to pursue hobbies. Curtis got me 2 new board games. Carmy, she's dragging herself across the floor chasing a toy. Knocked my tripod. And Curtis got me 2 new board games for Christmas. He got me Wormspan, which is a dragon version of Wingspan. We played that last night and I had a really good time. And he got me one called Arc Nova, which I think he said, according to Board Game Geek, is like one of the best board games in the world. So I think we're going to be playing that a little bit later on. I think we're playing Fortnite tonight with our friends. We have got back into Baldur's Gate, which we haven't played, I think, pretty much for the majority of the year. We got to Act 3 and then I think we kind of just got busy and then fell out of a routine of like coming back to Baldur's Gate. So we've now gotten back into that and I'm really enthusiastic about that. So we'll see how long it does take me to read the rest of this. It is looking unlikely that I'm gonna have this done within a week because I'd have to read like over 200 pages a day. And I am actually really taking my time with this because I want to make sure that I'm actually ingesting the content and making sense of it as I'm reading it. So I'm taking a little bit more time in terms of my just general pace when I'm reading. And if I need to, like if it gets a little bit fantastical and I've forgotten the terminology, I'm going back and kind of rereading the paragraph or the page to make sure that I'm grasping it. Because with this being the final book in the series, I didn't love the second book as much as I enjoyed the first one. And I know a bunch of people said that this book is really worth it, that it brings the series to a great close. I know that James Islington is quite skilled with like complex plot twist, so I want to make sure that all of those are landing for me and that I have a good grasp of this one overall. So dinner tonight is M&S Picky Bits. We have the snowman bao buns. I'm the most excited about halloumi and blankets. We also have katsu chicken bites and the Caledonian Gold hot smoked salmon rosti. So I'm going to put most of these in the air fryer and we are partway through a game of Arc Nova. So it took us like 2 hours. We started at like 2 p.m. It's now 5. It took us 2 hours to figure out how to set all of this up. Like, as you can see, it's pretty extensive. And we've been playing for about an hour. And this is how developed my zoo is. So I feel like we're going to be here for a long time. Still not much reading has happened. Not to alarm anybody, but I have finally read a substantial amount of The Light of All That Falls. I'm 25% of the way through this. I'm on page 211 and I know, right? It's taken me 7 days to get here. But I don't know what to tell you guys. Hibernation just looks really good on me. And you might be looking at me right now thinking that I'm Delulu, but I'm living the dream, guys. I wake up in the morning, I read a little of my book, I do a little movement. Yesterday I went for a run. This morning I did yoga. I then come back. I have some lunch. I read a little more of my book. I have a nap. I play a board game. I have a snack, I have dinner, I read a chapter, I have a nap, I play Baldur's Gate. Stuff like this is literally what this week was made for, and there's a reason that this is one of my favorite times of year. It's not Christmas, it is Betwixtmas, like the week between Christmas and New Year is what I put all the work in for before Christmas Day. So at a quarter of the way through this book, I am actually intentionally taking this slowly, as well as the fact that I'm just not really reading because I'm literally playing every game in existence and spending most of my time sleeping outside of that. I'm intentionally taking it slowly because I want to make sure that I'm absorbing it and that I'm actually kind of comprehending what's going on. And it's actually refreshing to spend a week reading 200 pages. This is something that I haven't done in years, probably almost the entire time that I've had a booktube channel. I haven't read this slowly, and it's definitely helping with my comprehension, but I am also pretty certain at this point that I don't love this series. So I am obviously going to see it out. I mean, I've committed this much to it. I've only got 600 pages of the trilogy left. I don't even know why I don't like it. If I'm being honest, there's definitely the comparisons to Wheel of Time that I've spoken about before, but I just generally don't find what's going on that engaging. Like a quarter of the way through the final book in the series, and we have all four of our characters are all separated, which is fine because for the entirety of this series, pretty much they've all represented a different facet of this world, and they kind of start off together on the same adventure in book one, but they very quickly after that like kind of all go their own ways, and they're all representing these various factions, and that is absolutely fine. It means that we get a representative for each kind of element of this world, and we're seeing firsthand what's occurring. But we have so many characters, like side characters, that I just don't care about, and I feel like that is very comparable to Wheel of Time. Like our supporting cast outside of our four main characters are not especially interesting or engaging or consistent. They don't play super prominent roles in that we really get to know them at all. They are there to fulfill a role in the story, as opposed to being characters that you kind of care about and root for. And our four main characters, I would say, because this is written from a third person perspective with a level of detachment, I'm not really getting the level of attachment that I need to be really invested in a story. The plot in itself is like relatively interesting, but it has so much going on, and I feel like without that character connection, there's not a lot really grounding me to this story. And I do feel like that aside from the fact that it is reminiscent of Wheel of Time, it is also very reminiscent of classic fantasy in general. And of course, as I've been exploring the fantasy genre from like some of the classics to all of the modern stuff in the years like over my channel, I have discovered that classic fantasy isn't really for me. I'm really sorry if you're new here and you didn't know that I don't like Lord of the Rings, but I don't like the oh my god, what is it called? The Ursula K. Le Guin series. I literally only just unhauled the entire collection. What is that series called? That is going to stress me out, but actually I've been nestled on the couch watching Squid Game and I have no idea where my phone is right now. I'll be honest. Earthsea, the Tales of Earthsea. That is also kind of true of Wheel of Time, because I feel like the influence of classic fantasy on Wheel of Time is really strong, and I do feel like the 90s was a big transitionary period for fantasy, where we went from kind of a more detached storytelling, like aerial storytelling style, like you're kind of watching everything and maneuvering all of these moving parts from a distance, to a more character-focused narrative style. And I feel like that is definitely what I enjoy more, and I tend to enjoy fantasy. My favorite actually decade for epic fantasy is probably the 90s, like Game of Thrones, Realm of the Earthlings, up into your more modern stuff. And my preference in the fantasy genre when we're talking about epic fantasy is characters that you identify with and that you can root for, paired with this really epic, complex, intricate plot. And I feel like this series from James Islington definitely skews more towards that more like detached aerial overview of the plot with all of these moving parts, whereas The Will of the Many I already know does provide me with a character that I root for. I feel like we have a lot more points of high emotion, and I discussed in the last vlog when I read the second book in this series that the difference between those two may be partially down to the fact that The Will of the Many is written in first person as opposed to the Licanius trilogy being written in third, obviously creating a greater connection to the characters. But I'm glad that I read this one, especially as The Will of the Many was my favourite book of last year. If I do enjoy an author like that, I like to have read all of their work so that I have a kind of like well-rounded knowledge and appreciation of everything that they've written and how they've progressed as an author. But yeah, I'm not having the best time with this one. one, there are things that kind of interest me. Like I am interested in the plot and how James Islington always has an element of sci-fi within his books for both of the series that I've read. And in this one, we have a lot of time travel and also portals in here. And because of some of the events that have already happened in the past, but also haven't happened in the present, because it's further down the timeline for the characters, I'm kind of interested in how all of that stuff connects. And there is still one character in here that I am more interested in than the other three. So at this point, I'm kind of interested to see how his storyline wraps up. But definitely not a favorite, which is really sad because I saw the potential in book 1, but I feel like it kind of lost me a little bit in book 2. And it's early days for this. I've still got 600 pages to go. But at the minute, 25% of the way into this, my feelings haven't really changed from how I felt about the second book.
25,500 resistance. 40 to 50, 70 vacations. 1, 2, 1, 2.
So today is my last official day of hibernation and I'm really sad about it. I'm in mourning for all of the free time that I've had. It has been a blast and I'm sad to have to start transitioning back to reality. But today I want to make a concentrated effort to get through some of The Light of All That Falls. However, I have come to the conclusion that I'm not going to finish this before the end of the year. I spent quite a bit of time yesterday trying to get through a solid chunk of this book, which I did. I think I read about 150, 160 pages. But because of the nature of this, because it's a relatively dense book, it's pretty slow going. It's not the kind of thing where I can get through just under 400 pages in the next 2 days, especially because tomorrow, if I have any hope of getting any sort of video up on my channel for my upload days this week, I need to do a little bit of filming. So we're just going to chip away at it slowly like we have been doing, but with slightly more pace than we have, and I'm hoping to have this finished by the end of the week. So I'm 437 pages into it, which is just past the halfway point, which is why I'm like, there's no way without committing my sanity to this project that I'm going to get through the second half of this book, and I don't want to rush it. I also don't want to force myself to do things that I don't want to do, and I don't want to spend my entire day trying to read this book for the sake of reading it. And that is a theme that I want to take forward into 2026, not doing things or reading things that I don't want to do when I don't want to do them. So we'll see how that plays out. But your girl has had enough. And you know what the good news is? Since I passed around the 30% mark of this book, I have started to enjoy it a little bit more. I think that the issue that I have with this book and why I'm enjoying some parts of it and not enjoying others is that half of the perspectives, now that Davian's doing something interesting, half of the perspectives I'm kind of invested in, and the other half I'm not enjoying as much. Where represents the political plot line of this story, like the modern day current politics, and trying to get everyone organized to kind of deal with the matter at hand and the difficulties that he's facing in doing that. And it feels, while it's obviously relevant in a objective kind of way, like the politics of this world, getting everyone to kind of fall in line and help to manage the threat, that is an important part of the plot, but I don't find it a particularly interesting one to follow. And Asha has a storyline that I've never enjoyed. She had like an underground rebellion kind of storyline, which doesn't inherently disinterest me, but thinking of every book that I've had where you have a character that goes on that path while the other characters are doing other things, I'm thinking like the Stormlight Archive with Shallan, I'm thinking the Red Queen series, very different kind of series by Victoria Aveyard, with I think Farley was a character in that. I have not really enjoyed following that perspective. I'm always more interested in other elements of the plot, and now Asha's perspective has almost a dreamlike quality about it, which we all know, dream magic, anything that kind of isn't technically real or takes place on a subconscious plane has never really worked for me. I read the Dreamblood series by N.K. Jemisin. I nearly said N.E. Davenport, that's not right. Really didn't work for me because of the dream magic. We also have Wheel of Time. Didn't love the dream magic in that. And I think it's because as a person, like, I like the concrete, I like the tangible, and I don't want to have to puzzle out what is real and what it means, like what the metaphor is and that kind of thing. But what I do really like about this story, even though there's all of these elements that aren't working for me, is the theological discussions that we have. And it's that element that I keep finding myself sucked back into. So essentially, underneath the surface plot of this series, we're dealing with time. as I've already discussed. And like with things like Wheel of Time, the timeline of this series stretches back like thousands of years. And we have this group of people, once again, like in Wheel of Time, also like in the Stormlight Archive, all very similar series that share very similar threads. We have this like legendary group of people who have been manipulating the narrative throughout millennia. And in the Licanius trilogy, these people are called the Venerates. Essentially, they think that they are on a holy mission from their god, who is El, to rid the world of Shamaloth, who is the bad guy. And they believe that if they do all of these things that El is telling them to do, even though it includes committing atrocities, when they get to the point where they've achieved their mission and they've banished Shamaloth from the world, everything that they've done will become undone. So their souls will be cleansed. Like all of these terrible things that they did will be undone and will have never have happened, and therefore they won't matter. So they're doing all of these bad things. They're manipulating all of these people like pawns in the name of the greater good. However, there are some people amongst them who, as time goes on, start to question the origins of the orders that they've been receiving and wondering whether it's actually Shamaloth who is manipulating them behind the scenes in the name of El, and that El has never intervened and never existed in the first place. And because of that, we have a lot of discussions of theology in this series from people in the Venerate, and also from just like the regular person. And it obviously mirrors monotheistic religion in today's society, and how when, for example, people who don't believe in a god say, if your god exists, then how can this happen? And people say things like, oh, it's in God's plan, like bad things happen because God planned them to, but it's okay because it'll be okay in the end. And we have those kind of like discussions going on. And the interesting thing about it is that at this point in the series, where I'm halfway through the third book, I don't know if I'm supposed to know what's really going on, because I am quite a gullible person, honestly, which is why I like things that are rooted in fact and logic and that can be proven, because then I know them to be true and I'm not like kind of being fooled. So I don't know whether I'm supposed to know what's going on and which one is the actual path. But the thing that I'm finding interesting right now is that I don't know what is right. I don't know whether it's El. I don't know whether it's Shamaloth. And I find that really interesting, because if you bring it back to the discussions of theology that we have, the point in a religion is that you have to have faith. Like there's no reason why this god El should exist, but you have to wholeheartedly and unquestioningly believe that they do to help them like kind of fulfill their mission. And from what I've seen, there's no concrete evidence that it's either El or Shamaloth that is manipulating things in the background. For me, logically, it seems very plausible that it could be Shamaloth, but we have so many characters in here who are still on the side of El, still pursuing El's will without any concrete information, that it makes me question what I believe and what some of our characters believe. And so I don't know how this is going to turn out in the end, but I'm really interested to find out. That's probably the most interesting element of this whole series to me at this point. It is New Year's Eve, which means it's time for a lore drop. If this is not your first year on this channel, then this may be lore that you are already aware of, but for the uneducated, I don't typically celebrate New Year's Eve. I'm not doing anything. I'm in the sweatbook pant combo that I've been wearing pretty much all week. Honestly, it needs to go in the wash. And I also don't really drink anymore, but on Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, the 10th of January and Mother's Day, I always have a Black Russian, because it is the cocktail that my mum would make, especially like around Christmas. She typically wouldn't make one on her birthday, but I drink one on her birthday in her honor. So I'm going to teach you guys how to make it. It's really simple. I would advise using maybe slightly weaker spirits than what I'm going to be going with, but this one is for my coffee loving gals, although I wouldn't say it has an overwhelmingly strong coffee flavor. We are going to be using Tia Maria, which I think used to be marketed as a coffee liqueur, and now it's like a cold brew coffee liqueur. Also drink responsibly in terms of like the time of day that you consume this. I don't feel like I've noticed myself be overly caffeinated, but it literally says cold brew on it, so that's a little bit of an indicator. But what you're gonna want is Tia Maria. Now I'm gonna go for a double shot. Would recommend a single shot because this is not a weak drink, but mama did not raise somebody who can't handle her alcohol, so I'm going to go strong and I'm going to be drunk in about 10 minutes because like I said, I don't drink anymore. But it's an equal measure of Tia Maria and just regular vodka. I'm gonna regret this massively. And then you're gonna want to add your Coke. I would recommend full fat Coke. I currently don't have any because I buy some just for Black Russians and then I never get through it, so at this point it's just a waste. You should also really have like an equal measure of Coke, but I'm gonna go with the full can because like I said, she doesn't really drink anymore. I have also had this, like I can never find it on a cocktail menu pretty much anywhere, but I did have it once in Tenerife and they topped it off with a head of Guinness. That was really, really nice. I don't have any Guinness, so we're going to do it without. Whew. She's strong, but she's good. Honestly, if y'all haven't tried Tia Maria and you're coffee drinkers, 10 out of 10 would recommend. I don't feel like it's a popular beverage anymore. So like I said, New Year's Eve, I've just made myself a plate of cheese and crackers. I'm going to play Fortnite. I'm going to read some more of my book. I'm like 65% of the way in. But cheers, guys. Happy New Year. I hope 2026 is a good one for all of us. And I hope you all had a wonderful, enjoyable, maybe more exciting New Year's Eve than the one that I'm about to have. Did we get a projector just so that we can watch Vanderpump Rules in bed? I'm afraid to say that the answer to that question may or may not be yes. I'm up to season 9, I think episode 4. I'm not far away from Scandal starting to unfold. And I'm very excited, but also a little bit sad and scared because I feel like I've grown with these people at this point. I have seen Tom Sandoval more than I have seen my own family in 2025, and no, I am not exaggerating. Hello my guys, I am very unfortunately back at work today, so I got lots to do. Luckily though, just one day until the weekend. And finally, literally finally, I'm in the end stretch of The Light of All That Falls. I think I'm at around 80%. I have about 150, 140 pages to go. And we are in the thick of the action. I will say I feel like the action did start a little bit sooner than I would have liked. I think it was around the 60-65% mark. We started to get into the fight scenes and the battles, and that is expected for the end of an adult like epic fantasy. However, we all know that fight scenes are not especially my favorite, and I don't really like the way that James Islington writes them in the Licanius trilogy. Adding on from what I said about some of the elements of this series being dreamlike, I also don't love the magic in this world. I feel like there is a system there. I feel like it is a hard magic system in some regards, but I do feel like because half of the magic system, half of the type of magic we have in this world is mental, it does sometimes fall into the category of I used my magic to do this because in this moment I realized it was something I could do. And when we combine that with the faster pacing of the fight scenes, the action scenes, it's not the most compelling thing for me to read. I do think that I have enjoyed elements of everybody's perspective in this book though, apart from Were, which is upsetting because I don't think he was my least favorite in book 2. I actually didn't mind some of what he was working on. He's representing like the majority of the politics of the world, but I do feel like he's really taken a backseat as a character in this book. He is preparing for the inevitable. He's preparing for the end of the book. I feel like that's a little unfair to him because I feel like he is a victim of the plot more than a lot of people in this book, and he's just kind of like panic responding to everything and trying to keep his head. But yeah, we're in the kind of like the thick of the battle. I wish that I was a little bit more attached to this one than I am, but there are still things that I like about it, and I'm waiting for James Islington to pull something out in the 11th hour, if I'm being honest, that's going to make me feel like reading the series was really worth it. I want him to do something like really spectacular and clever. I don't know whether he's going to. I feel like that is something that he does as an author, but right now I'm not sure what that would be.
What's happening, babies? It's snowing. What's happening? like, I can't keep up with her. She's so fast.
The epilogue of this book ended me, and I have told you guys how much I love James Islington's epilogues in the past. For all 4 of the books that I've read of his, I find his epilogues to be so dynamic, which is a little unusual for me because the end of a fantasy book, like as the pace ramps up, you obviously read a little bit quicker, and with the majority of the end of epic fantasy books being things like action scenes and battle scenes, I find that I retain information from those sections of the books a little bit less than I do the slower moments, the politics and all of that stuff that is really like the nitty gritty of the book for me. And so typically when it comes to this genre, the very end of the book is the part that I can remember the least, but I could tell you the ending note of every single James Islington book. And actually, I think especially for the Licanius trilogy, I'm pretty sure the epilogues have been my favorite parts of the books. I didn't really expect this to be the case for The Light of All That Falls though, because for all of the other books that I've read, they haven't been the conclusion of a series. So they've ended on a cliffhanger, something really memorable that makes you want to continue immediately, whereas this was the final note of the book, and was it perfect. I gave this book 4 stars purely because of that epilogue. This was a 3-star read for me up until that point, but the way that this book ended, I was kind of waiting throughout the entire end portion of this book for everything to come together, and I had so many questions. And there is something about this book that actually kind of annoys me that I will talk about in a minute, but the epilogue, I can't say any more than that because obviously massive spoilers, but it was perfect. The way that it brought everything together but also revisited all of the key points of this series, I loved. There is something that I found really cool about this book as well that I really would love to talk about with you guys, but I can't because it's spoilers. But my favorite character throughout this entire thing is Caden, okay? Like, he is the star of the show, and I love the complexity of his perspective specifically, but also just like the way that this entire thing ties together, the way that his belief system is built around essentially one person, and the parallel between that person and the gods of that world, I think is pretty much as close as I can come to describing what I love so much about that element of the book. But the thing that annoys me, okay, is that there is going to be a standalone book in this world, and there is, right at the end of this book, after the author's note, there is a section called, actually it's after the acknowledgements and it is an author's note, dealing with 2 characters that go off to kind of do their own thing in book 2 and then magically reappear in book 3, and a huge chunk of the story is missing. They're like, yeah man, we've been through it, it's a long story, I'll tell you at a later date, but obviously this is like the end of the 3rd book, so we kind of move on and we never revisit them. So that is addressed in an author's note, and there's going to be a standalone story at some point. It does say in the author's note that it's not going to be his next project because obviously that was the will of the many, but he's going to make a standalone story revisiting that and like kind of what happened with those guys, which I mean is fine, but it also intersects in a really big way with this series. So I feel like just having the reader accept that you're just not going to know what happened there, you just have to accept it, is a little much. I feel like if you wanted to make a standalone spin-off story following what was going on there, absolutely fine, but do that before the final book is published so that you can read it chronologically, because it did actually just annoy me a little bit at the point in the timeline of this series that fell. And I obviously know as well that having that intersect the main trilogy would kind of get in the way of the timeline, and it would be annoying to jump outside just to see what they're doing and then come back to the main narrative. But I also think that's better than waiting like 5 years for a standalone that does intersect with the storyline of this main trilogy in a really big way. So I do feel like this was a 3-star read for me for the majority of it. I did have a really rough time with this in the first 30%, and I did get a little bit more invested in it past that point. There are elements of this series I really love, especially as I mentioned all of the theological discussions that we have in here. A note on that as well, I have trust issues. That's all I can say. I just have trust issues. I think sometimes because I have a tendency to be so gullible, it then makes me not want to believe things in case they're wrong. Like, I try not to be gullible, and then I just can't trust anything, and I don't trust anything. And this is a problem in life as well outside of books. But I think that I have trust issues, and that's why I was so like unsure of how I felt about what what was playing out. And also, especially when we're reading this genre, I'm always expecting there to be another plot twist. So I'm on my toes. Like, I can't believe anything that anyone is saying at any point in case they jump out and tell me that it was all a lie. But I do still maintain that there is a distance between me and most of the characters. The only one that I really care about with any level of depth is Caden. The rest of them, they have interesting elements to their character, but they're not characters that I'm really rooting for, and that does impact my emotional enjoyment of this story and my emotional investment, meaning that when we did get some sadder points throughout this series, there are some casualties, as there always are in adult epic fantasy. I didn't particularly care all that much about it. I was like, okay, they're dead, let's move on. And so it's not a favorite for me, but I do really like James Islington's plotting and his eventual execution of that plot. I do wish it was a little bit more engaging in the moment and something that I was enjoying a little bit more when I'm reading it. But I would say that the payoff, up until that epilogue, I would have said it was not worth me slogging through this book, and I should have DNF'd after book 2, which I already struggled a little bit to get through. But damn, you know what? It is worth it. I think that epilogue changed my feelings on this entire book. But like I said, there were elements of it that I really liked. Overall, not the most enjoyable reading experience. I actually can't remember the last time it has taken me 2 solid weeks to read a singular book, even one as thick as this. And I know I've been distracted and doing other things, and I've been allowing myself to do that, but this has truly been the pace at which I have wanted to read this book. And I'm glad that I led into that, but like I said, 2 weeks to read a book, cannot remember the last time that happened to me. But I do know that I will continue to read from James Islington. At this point, I'm not sure whether I will cycle back around to this by the time that additional standalone is released, because the main thing that I enjoyed about this was the intricate plotting and the way everything came full circle right at the end. I wouldn't expect a standalone to have that degree of intricacy, which means that I'm not particularly interested in revisiting this world, but I am, of course, heavily invested in the Hierarchy series, and I'm really excited to reread The Will of the Many to be able to get to The Strength of the Few. And I'm also very excited to see what James Islington comes up with in the future, because I feel like stylistically these 2 series from him are very, very different, even though they do have some commonality. So that does bring us to the end of this extremely long reading vlog. I hope you've enjoyed it, guys. I did put I didn't put a poll in my TBR. I asked you guys in my TBR whether you wanted me to have my first vlog of the year be catching up on some of my Patreon picks, or whether you wanted an arc vlog of my January releases that I have review copies of, and it was a very mixed bag. I don't think there was a clear winner, so I'm just gonna do a bit of a mashup, because the live show for Catch Up Book Club for the last book in the Banished Land series, which is A Time of Courage, is going to be on my channel on the 11th of January. It's a 700-page adult epic fantasy book, and I need to read it, so I'm going to be tackling this alongside maybe one of my Patreon book club books that I'm a little bit behind on, and also maybe one of my shorter Patreon picks. This is going to be the main focus of the vlog, but I'm also going to see kind of like where the wind blows me, and I am hoping to get back to, I know that this one has been a very slow vlog that has reflected how I have been throughout the last 2 weeks, just kind of hibernating and enjoying the winter break. But I am hoping to get back into just like regular weekly reading vlogs. It's been a couple of years since I've been able to really focus on that kind of content, but I really do love it. Like, general weekly reading vlogs are my favorites to consume, and I also, when I get in the zone, I really enjoy making them. So my main priority read of next week is going to be this. We'll see whatever else I manage to get read during the week and whatever else I manage to get up to, because I have to return to normal life next week, sadly. But I do hope that you guys have had a wonderful start to your year, and you've had a wonderful, sleepy, cozy, festive period just like I did. I also hope you've enjoyed this vlog if you've made it this far. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.